What's up, people of the internet? My name is Abacab, and today we have 3 new cards to go over, so stay tuned. Alright, so we've gotten 3 new items since last we spoke. That includes 1 item and 2 fuzzy boys. 2 cost cards in blue and green. So we're going to go over those first, starting off with the Vul Martyr. Vul Martyr is a 2 cost green card with 2 attack, 2 health, and the death effect. Modify all allies with a +1 attack and +1 health. Alright, so first off, I realize this card's a bit underwhelming, but keep in mind, this is a low 2 cost card, so we're not going to have incredibly powerful effects. However, of all the 2 cost creature cards, and each color has 1, we'll go into that in just a bit, but of all of them, this is one of the better ones. Not the best one certainly, but one of the better ones in my opinion, because it fits green's style so well. Green likes a couple of things. First of all, it likes a wide board. It likes to put out lots and lots of creatures and overwhelm, kind of stampede you. So if you put this fuzzy boy out in a very wide board and then it dies, which is probably going to happen pretty soon with its measly 2 health, then you get to buff everything else on your board, including your heroes, with +1 attack and +1 health permanently. This can help you snowball and build an even stronger board that will survive turn after turn after turn, because another thing that green likes to do is survive. It's a bit more defensive in terms of colors. It likes lots of health, it likes defensive effects, so it makes sense for this effect to give all of your allies plus health, which makes them a little bit survivable for next turn. The problem with this card though is that its core stats are bad. Real bad. This thing's stats sucks. A 2/2, this thing will get 1 shot for a melee creep, so it will not stick around for long. And with just 2 attack, it's not really going to be doing much on the field. So honestly, this is something that you want to play in order to die. It's kind of like a chump blocker. You put it in front of, a hero or a big creature, and it's going to soak up a hit and buff your line. So it's kind of not a big deal that its stats are so low. In a way, it's almost more like a 2-mana buff spell, kind of like Mists of Avernus. The value of this card doesn't really lie in its body. It lies in the fact that it soaks up damage once and it'll buff everything else. Of course, one of the weaknesses with this card is that if you get hit by a board wipe, then sorry, everything's going to be dead, so there's nothing around to benefit from the +1 attack and +1 health. Put it down turn 1, turn 2, use it to block something like a Sorla Khan or an Axe or some big hero. Then you get the death effect, and then ideally you buff 2 heroes with +1 attack and +1 health each, which honestly is not too bad for 2 mana. So it's got potential. If you draw it late game, it's kind of a dead card. You're not really going to do a lot with it. But that being said, I could really see it fit in with a zoo deck. For those of you who aren't familiar, a zoo deck, or a weenie deck to use Magic the Gathering terms, is all about putting out tons and tons of very low cost, cheap minions, and you just kind of overwhelm your opponent, swarm them with tons and tons of creatures, and they just go through and hit the tower and win the game. So I could see this actually being a staple in zoo decks. By itself, it's not going to do a lot, but when you've got, 8, 9 other things in the lane, then that stuff adds up pretty quickly. Alright, next up we have the Relentless Zombie, and this is quite a before and after shot, isn't it? Don't join a Vul Rebellion, kids, or you'll end up like this Relentless Zombie. He had so much going for his life, and then he chose the wrong side, and now he's a hideous, stinky, fuzzy zombie, I guess. I don't even know. So Relentless Zombie is a 2/2 just like Vul Martyr, except it's blue and it has a play effect that it gives the Relentless Zombie a Death Shield. Now, what is Death Shield? Death Shield is a new mechanic that Artifact has been hinting at, but we just got the official rules today. A Death Shield basically means that if you would die and you have a Death Shield, you remove the Death Shield and then you don't die and you survive with 1 health instead. So if you get hit with Echo Slam, if Axe smacks this dude in the face, if you just get hit by a melee creep, in all those scenarios, the Death Shield would be removed from Relentless Zombie and he would survive with 1 health remaining. So the basic idea with this card is that it will give you 2 blocks for just 2 mana. So you put this in front of Axe, Axe smacks it, he dies, comes back to life, or rather he doesn't die at all, he has 1 health, and then next turn Axe smacks him again. So he's theoretically good at slowing down decks, right? He's kind of plays into the blue defensive slow vibe, but the issue is he's not gonna do much by himself. Like, he does a decent job of slowing down damage, but he's not gonna help you like win the game. He's not gonna win the game. This is not a win condition by any means. Just his stats are so low, his stats are so meager that when you play this card, it's not really gonna affect the board state much. It's just gonna spare your tower a little bit of tower damage. Is this card good? No, not so much. I think I'd probably rank it at the lower end of the 2 cost cards. Speaking of the 2-cost cards, we now have the full rotation. Each color has a 2-cost card. And when I put these up side by side, it's quite clear to see who wins. Red has a beastly 4/2/2 for just 2 mana. What I like so much about these 4 units is that they do such a good job of showing off the 4 colors, what they're good at, what they're bad at, how they like to play their games. We have red, which is tough, brawly, strong, powerful. What red wants to do is smack into other units in combat and win that combat. Then we have black, which is aggressive, offensive, not as good as red is at brawling, and unfortunately it's just objectively worse than the red card because this just isn't where black shines. It's not all about putting a strong, cheap line of minions down, so it makes sense that it would be weaker than the red color. Then we have the green Vul Martyr. Not strong by himself, but with the power of teamwork, he can help overwhelm the opponent with a very wide, very strong board. And then of course we have blue. Blue is not about big bodies. Blue does not go to the gym. Blue does not work out. Blue likes to sit in its computer chair and look up Wikipedia articles. Blue just likes to slow down the game. And this is what this card is trying to do. Does it do it well? Not so much. So overall, not a super strong card. And I know that a lot of these cheap cards are probably just in general a little underwhelming, with the exception, of course, of the Bronze Legionnaire. That card's incredible. But the thing to keep in mind about these cards, and in fact, Artifact in general, we've heard from Richard Garfield, and just a quick aside, if you don't know who Richard Garfield is, he's the fella who designed Magic the Gathering and also came to Valve with the idea for Artifact. So he is arguably one of the world's best card game designers. What he wants to make Artifact feel like is you and your friends hanging out around the kitchen table and just playing games, and you've got, 1,000 cards that you bought at the local gaming store, and you're like, hey, we've been playing the same decks forever, let's make up some goofy rules, let's double health, or let's give us free mana, just crazy stuff like that. So from what we've heard, limited is going to be an actually pretty important part of the game, and in fact might be more important than constructed. Well, again, what do these terms mean? Constructed is deck building. Like, you have all the cards, you make a deck of all the cards, you play against other people who have all the cards. Limited basically just means you don't have access to all the cards, and you have to make a deck out of a limited pool of cards. So for example, you might get 5 packs, and you have to make a deck out of those 5 packs, something like that. So for limited, just in general, the power level is a little bit lower because you have fewer options. You might not always have, a deck filled with all rares, or you won't necessarily get access to the strongest heroes and the strongest cards in the game. Everyone has a limited card pool, and you just have to do the best with what you have. So I think for those game modes, cards like Relentless Zombie will be a little bit more effective, so don't judge too harshly and too quickly. So those are the 2 creep card reveals. Now on to the item, and oh man, this one is a doozy. I think this is actually potentially the strongest, or at least one of the strongest revealed cards that we have seen so far. The Obliterating Orb is a 10 gold cost consumable that condemns an improvement. And I know this isn't, super flashy. It's not an Apotheosis Blade, but this is so powerful. I really can't understate just how useful this card is. So what makes this so good? The reason why this card is good is because it's so insanely flexible. First of all, destroying an improvement is a very powerful effect. Imagine hitting a steam cannon with this thing. Imagine hitting a barracks with this thing. That is an incredible amount of value right off the bat. But you're probably thinking, well, what about the decks that don't run any improvements? Then in that case, this card is useless. Yes, that's true, but who cares, man? This is an item that you put in your item deck. So if you're playing against a deck and it's clear halfway through the game that the opponent doesn't have any improvements, then you just don't buy this. You just buy other stuff instead, and then hopefully it doesn't keep showing up in the store. I mean, that's a possibility. You could keep running into this item when you would rather see other items in your store instead. But in general, the fact that you can choose to buy this or not buy it makes it incredibly flexible and useful. And that's still not even the best thing about this card. The best thing about this card is that it is a consumable item, which means it's colorless. And as a result of being colorless, that means you can cast it when you don't have a hero in the lane. That's so huge. There are so few cards you can play in an empty lane, and consumables, I think consumables are actually the only card you can play in an empty lane. So imagine you're getting completely overwhelmed in one lane, you pull your heroes out of it, they play some massive improvement that's going to threaten your towers. In that case, no big deal. When you're in the lane, you just throw down one of these obliterating orbs and it completely takes out the improvement. No hero required. So just this item, it hits on all cylinders. The effect is useful. The effect is powerful. The effect is versatile. It's not an expensive card. If you don't need the card, you just don't buy it. And you can use it when you don't even have a hero in the lane. So this is looking like the type of item that you might want to include one, maybe two of in every single item deck, just because it's so incredibly flexible.
A few moments later.
So literally, I just finished recording. I hit the stop recording button. I look over to my second monitor where I've got Twitter, and I see the Play Artifact Twitter has just released another card. So we're going to add a fourth card to my video. If this next section feels a little bit disjointed, that's because it is. I added it in after the fact, so just bear with me. So we have Selfless Cleric, a 4-mana green unit with 4 attack, 4 health, and it fully heals after each combat phase. Plus, I've just got to take a moment to stop and appreciate this artwork. For one, this cleric is going at it. He is about to bash a motherfucker's face in. He is into it. But if you look in the background, you have a tank, our poor tank, who is completely overwhelmed. Look at all those zombies grabbing onto him. He is going down. He needs healing. He needs healing. But he's not getting it because our selfish cleric is clueless. He's so focused on getting that killing blow, so focused on getting that CS, that he is not even paying attention to his tank whatsoever. And oh god, that poor tank. We've all been there, man. Dumbass supports don't know how to support their team. Anyways, let's talk about the card. This card fits into green's overall vibe quite well. Green likes units that are sticky, that stay on the board and keep bringing value turn after turn. And in theory, you get it with this card because it keeps healing itself. That makes this card quite effective at killing melee creeps because it does just enough damage to take out the enemy creep, but after combat it fully heals itself, so it doesn't matter that that melee creep did that 2 damage to it. The problem with this card is that 4 health just in general isn't that much. There are so many heroes in this game that deal 4 damage that taking this unit out is really not going to be that hard unless you're playing like a mono blue deck, basically. So I'm kind of afraid that in a lot of scenarios you're going to play this card and the card text just isn't going to matter whatsoever, because Axe doesn't care about the card text. Sorlakan doesn't care about the card text. Ogre Conscript doesn't care about the card text. Unless you have some way to extremely buff up this unit's health and get it to like 10, 12 health, and you know, there might be an effect like that in the game, but at the moment we're not aware of it, then I feel like this card's just going to die to most units, most heroes right off the bat. Melee creep, sure, it destroys melee creep, but for 4 mana, I don't know, man. Rhea already does that at 2 mana just fine with the Bronze Legionnaire. It also has 4 attack, which is enough to take out creep, but it has 2 armor, meaning it doesn't take any damage at all from melee creep. So this might be a little bit overcosted, and the stat distribution isn't the best stat distribution in the world. It might be better off as like a 2/6 or maybe even a 1/7. But, you know, we'll have to see. Maybe there's a bunch of buffing cards that make this card a lot stronger. There are things like the Martyr, of course, which would bring this up to a 5/5, making it a bit tougher. But even then, there's still a lot of heroes that deal 5 damage. So how good this card is going to depend a lot on how good green is at buffing up this unit and making it capable of surviving, you know, those heavy hitting red heroes, black heroes, even green heroes can do a decent job of taking this creep out. So anyways, what do you think about these cards? Do you agree with me that Obliterating Orb is that powerful? It is a, I don't want to say game winning because it's not a game winning condition card, but that it can help you win games consistently. If so, let me know down in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thank you so much for watching. Dabacab out.
Wow.